Is it?
Pretty spiffy.
Yeah, no, it's working.
It is working.
Is that with the
Facebook
Hawaiian
works
shirt
now,
on
yeah.
and everything?
I don't know if
Look
Facebook
like
works
we're-
anymore.
Look like you're in Hawaii.
I wish I would.
I thought you might have had a black eye, you wear those sunshades that cover it up, but
Yeah.
apparently not.
Hello.
Hey, Carl.
Hey,
Hello.
Made it early.
I did. They let me out in McDermott early. Y'all look so serious.
Or so tired.
We're saying, well, that too.
The end of the day, right?
And it's beautiful outside too.
Gorgeous.
It's supposed to be pretty today and tomorrow.
tell you, I'm not used to this much quiet, it's freaking me out.
Well, we don't wanna freak you out.
Oh, yeah.
Time for rest and relaxation before
Yeah.
4 o'clock.
We're all in a coma.
Ozone.
So relaxing.
Give it another minute.
There's such good stuff we're reading. We need to retain it all.
Riveting.
I'm seeing 4 o'clock, folks. So would you all join me in the pledge of allegiance to the flag of our country?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the Winnemucca Municipal Humboldt Airport Board is now in session for Monday, March 14th. First thing on our agenda is public comments. First, communication and correspondence. This period is for comments by the general public and for the board and staff to present correspondence, communication, and comments. No action will be taken upon a matter presented under this section until it's placed on the agenda for action. Public comments are generally limited to 3 months, and I will
3 minutes.
try to abide
Not
by
3
that.
months.
Are there any public comments at this time, here or online? None said, so I guess we'll move on. Minutes for correction or approval. Has the board members been able to read the minutes, and any comments or corrections or annotations or notes?
I'm
They
happy
were
to,
quite lengthy, but
I'm happy to make that motion as presented on the minutes to approve.
we have a motion on the board.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Next on our agenda is business items for discussion action. The first one is communication between airport board and city council, discussion of possible action. Hal, you had this put on the agenda?
Yeah, if I could,
Would you like to go ahead?
if I could take over for a minute here.
Sure.
You know, after speaking with several, present board members, past board members, speaking with Alicia, the mayor, I really get the feeling that trust has been lost over the years between the city council and the airport board. Which this has also hurt communication between the board and the council. I think we all kind of need to know the history of the airport, history of the airport board. I think that's all important. Mainly so that we know where we've been and how we can learn from it. But also, I'm not one to dwell on the past either. I think this lithium stuff changed a lot of things. And I think it's kind of created some tension between the council and the board. But moving forward, in order to help make communications clear between the board, the city staff, and the council, I would like to propose the following items. First would be to develop a vision for the Winnemucca Airport. Maybe a vision that aligns with our community. What our community is about, try to figure out a common goal for all players that have a stake in the game. you know, from the city council to the city staff, FBO, the users of the airport. You know, maybe this has happened in the past, maybe we have a vision written down somewhere, maybe not, I'm not sure. But either way, you know, trying to get everybody going in the right direction, everybody going in the same direction. Something that aligns with our, you know, budget constraints and, you know, time constraints too as well. So I feel like we're all working together for a common goal. I think that's gonna help communication as well, because we're all going in the right direction. The other thing I ask out of our board members is honesty, integrity when voting. You know, if we oppose something, then you shouldn't vote in favor for it. You know, vote opposed. That way everybody knows where we're at with it. And, you know, we're not always gonna disagree or agree, but, as long as we know where we're at, honestly, I think that's huge. The next thing I ask is, as a board member, you know, if you haven't had time to do your homework, you know, it's tough sometimes. We get the packet on Friday night, and, you know, if we got stuff going on all weekend, sometimes it's tough to go through. So if we're not well educated about it, if we don't have time to get through it, you know, let's be open to tabling something until the next meeting, to where we maybe have more time to make sure it's dialed. You know, and speaking with Alicia, we kind of both agreed that, you know, whatever the airport board votes on and the city staff recommends, that's gonna put clearly in the, packet for the city council. Correct, that's what we talked about, right?
Yeah, so listing the airport board motion in the staff report, and if staff recommendation is different, it can be different, but just clearly listing what they are. If they're the same, they're the same, but if, you know, just whatever they are, airport board motion and staff recommendation.
Those two could be different.
They could be
Or they
different.
could be
Or they,
uniform.
yeah,
I got you. I
most
see that.
cases they're the same.
And Vince, it'll be your job to make sure that that's, you know, getting in the packet. You know, Brad has volunteered to attend the city council meetings. That way, if there are any questions from the city council, you know, that maybe Vince isn't able to clarify, Brad is there. I think Brad's the best guy for the job. He's probably been at the airport longer than anybody around here. And been on the airport board the longest, so, and he's volunteered to do that and take the time to go there. You know, and I think doing just these things alone will communicate honesty to the city council, and, hopefully we can, rebuild that trust between the city council and the, airport board. So, any ideas from anybody else on the airport board? Brad?
Just a quick question, I think, I'm fine with going to a city council meeting, but I think it would just be the city council meeting following the airport board meeting, not every city council meeting.
Yes. Yeah.
I go to every city council meeting regardless, so
So does Vince.
Brad and I are there, doesn't matter, either one of us. I like to dovetail on what you said about here's something,
Brad, do you got anything else?
you got.
Continue.
No, I think the vision for the airport, we need to expand on that, and
I have a vision for the airport, Humboldt County Airport. It's a policy statement that you signed back in 2011, and you're the last one on the page to sign it. I'd like to read this and see what the board members think of it.
What is it?
It's a policy statement that we used to have on this board, and we still do, but it's never talked about, it's never been signed by all the board members. The last one to sign this was Brad.
the rest of the board members are gone.
The rest of the board members are gone. It says, the Humboldt County Airport Board's goal is to encourage development and relocation of business to our airport and to our airport industrial park. In that regard, we may offer certain concessions, benefits, and contributions to facilitate such development. It is our policy to deal with each person or entity on an equitable basis, offering no one person or entity of more favorable management than other. However, we do recognize that the individual business deal will always differ in circumstances, requirements, and benefits to the Winnemucca Airport complex. Accordingly, such concessions, requirements, and benefits may differ with each situation. The primary goal remains to do business in an equitable and fair manner. Do the board members think that is
That's not what I'm really more talking about, like a vision for the airport in itself. That
I
sounds
think
like
that's
more
still
of a-
fine for a policy
That's more for,
yeah,
thing.
I'd like to have a copy of that, please,
well,
so I can,
you can have a copy. I just wanted, do we want to have this to all the board?
I think that's still a good standard, because obviously that is a development area, and
Yeah.
obviously it is a business area, but and in that, in creating that, we're also getting money to the airport to make improvements
Right.
through the money we're creating on the non-aeronautical side, so that's great, but I know your vision, you're talking about something different.
yeah, I'm talking about more for, you know, the airport in general. You know, what do we wanna see at the airport, you know, as a visitor to the airport, as a business looking to come into the airport.
I think you want more business at the airport, you want, right?
Right, yeah.
I mean, my understanding is business is very slow at the airport, is that correct? Are hangars all full? I mean, are
No.
people flying, or?
No, we got some people flying. It's, you know, across the country, fuel prices are fairly high, so there's kind of a strain there.
Okay.
There could be more.
Except you,
Doesn't change.
Anyway, I think what you'd like to see is the airport itself get busier and grow.
Yeah, yeah. I can see aviation grow a little bit in Winnemucca, which would.
so just off the top of your head.
Thank you.
Hal, what, can you give me an example of a vision of what you're seeing or what you would like to see?
I guess just in general, you know, to really keep it simple, in simple terms, creating a nice, cleaned up airport, that's friendly, that's open to all business. You know, it's plastered all over town, Winnemucca, proud of it, you know, making sure that we're aligned with that. You know, trying to attract more people to stop on their way while they're crossing the country. You know, and it might take little things like a little camping area, or, you know.
I was just gonna
But-
ask, what would you recommend? I mean, as someone who's out there, cause I thought it was very clean, I just went for a tour, and I thought it was very cleaned up compared to when I used to go out with Kristen Carrier. It looked like a lot of old buildings had been brought down, and it looked nice. But what are you talking about to encourage? How do you do that? How do you get the word out in the outer space to stop here for gas, or to stop here for lunch, or?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it is word of mouth.
Amongst pilots.
Yeah, amongst pilots, you know, like, I've been across the country several times, and there's certain places that I will absolutely avoid.
Oh,
And there's
okay.
certain places I will go out of my way
Okay, to stop.
at, cause they were
Okay.
friendly.
And what, I was
They
gonna
had
say,
a
what did
clean,
that,
you know, they had a clean FBO. It was, you know, reasonable fuel prices.
restrooms?
A lot of times
Um,
pilots like to be
the,
able to stay overnight near the airport and near their aircraft too.
Accommodations,
Yeah, let's get a hotel
restaurants.
going out there.
Yeah, restaurants nearby.
do it.
You know, nice, clean courtesy cars, and just,
Yeah,
and
the
then,
cars.
you know, tying the community into it as well. You know, there's just creating that overall friendly environment.
Okay.
You know, the experimental aircraft category has grown exponentially as far as people taking their airplanes across the country and camping and, you know, making a camping trip out of it. And I think Winnemucca has the potential to have a really nice spot for people to stop. And yeah, they might not be buying a motel room, but you know, they might come in for dinner because they don't have room to carry a ton of food with them as they cross the country.
I know for our Moose tournament, Vince, for our basketball, we had 2 different people that flew in.
Did you?
But then somebody had to go get them, cause there isn't a car. Had to go get them, and then they needed to leave, they had to leave the tournament early, they were winning, it was going forever, but, yeah, but I thought that was interesting.
Yep, and there,
That
you know,
they,
there's just and I think it takes a little bit more of an open mind as far as, you know, trying to get some of the stuff done that's a little bit outside of the box. You know, maybe just coming up with a list of goals that we wanna see for the airport, and, you know, just an overall basic vision of what we want, making sure we're aligning with that vision and those goals.
Well, I'm not a Facebook person, but, I mean, is that something that maybe
Yeah, how
the
would you
FBO already
advertise?
does, or I mean, something to let people know what we have available, what we don't have available? I mean, is that something that is done now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the
Is there an
FBO
aviation
does.
site that you can put stuff on?
There's air nav, you know, making sure that you're, like when I fly cross country, I use my app for flight planning, and
Okay.
it'll tell you the basics that comes out of the publications, the chart supplements. But that's basically just phone numbers, you know, do they have gas, do they have maintenance, do they have, you
Place
know,
to eat, there's a
amenities,
little bit, yeah.
stuff like that. But then to take it a step farther, I mean, yeah, Facebook, there's all sorts of groups and.
There's Friends of Winnemucca Airport, there's a lot, there's the FBO and volunteers about, like, having the kids come from the 4th graders for the field trip, doing outreach and open houses to the public, and getting more of the community being interested in the airport and supporting it.
But I think you're talking about more travel, more ways to get more travel versus local. I mean, I think there's several things that they do locally to bring folks out. I know we have, and when certain planes come, you know, they advertise that they're coming. But I think you're talking about outside traffic, right?
Yeah, just
Outside
making
traffic.
sure that, you know, you only get one chance to make a
Impression.
first, you know, a good impression, right? You don't get a second chance typically. Just making sure we're putting our first foot forward and, you know, making it a place that people wanna stop the next time they're coming across the country. They're going, you know, Winnemucca, they had, you know, reasonable fuel, a nice courtesy car, there's great restaurants in town, they were.
And is Carol set the gas prices, or who sets the
Yeah,
gas
they set
prices?
the
And
gas
she
prices.
runs the building itself, correct?
Right, they run the business side of it, if you want and all that.
And are they staying up to your standard in there and stuff?
You know, like I say, they're not the worst, but they could do better.
Okay.
Yeah, we,
Just like I can do better in
Oh,
my
yeah.
business,
Yes.
both my businesses.
I guess we maybe should, I agree with you, maybe we should encourage the FBO to try and sell themselves a little bit more than they've had done in the past, maybe show that red carpet treatment, like a plane lands, run out there and help them pump, I know it's a self-serve, but go out there,
Yeah,
hey, can I help you, can I
I've
pump
had
it
talks
for
with
you?
the FBO,
I mean-
we've been in talks too, and that's not really where I wanna go down with this portion of the meeting. Just a general vision of, you know, what we
Oh, I
would
see
like to
what
see
you're
for
saying.
our airport.
Standard.
Do we
Yeah.
have a courtesy car out there, or?
The air service does, yeah.
They have
They
one.
have 4 of them.
They have 4 of them now?
So that's available for.
It is.
Yep.
So that'd be something
that's
to
a-
put on the
That's a
site.
plus to.
Mhm.
And Hal's right, we're not the worst, but we're not the best.
Have you ever built a marketing plan
The FBO
for the
has
airport?
not.
No,
Yeah,
for the airport.
Advisory board has not done anything like
No.
Has anybody
Not
ever
that I know.
considered doing something like that?
that, not to my knowledge.
Now we have, now we have, Carol.
But I think if, from what I hear, is this is not just the FBO. This is not just the gas prices. This is something that, as you have a vision, you have to tie in the community and have the community want to support the airport, bigger than just the FBO.
Right.
and.
I mean, the FBO is the number one, I mean.
That's the
they're
first
number one
place they're
driver
gonna
of it,
see.
You know, in a
Yeah.
sense, they can,
Right.
they can make it great, they can ruin it.
Right,
But,
but I think sitting
having
down
a-
and having a plan
right,
is
where
your
we
first
start.
step.
You're saying the airport board should be able to help you
Yeah.
develop that, I would think.
Well, that might be
Is
where
that
we
your
start.
vision?
That might be.
yeah,
our
I
starting
think just
point.
making sure we're all aligned with that. You
Fair.
know, the city council and the city staff and.
I think the
airport
chamber
manager
can
and
ask,
making sure
the
that
chamber
we're just-
could help that, with that a lot too.
Sure.
That might be a great starting.
I just threw somebody under the bus.
Great starting point.
So I see, you know, there's a lot of things that, you know, to move forward on, to add to. But again, I think somebody's gonna have to take it, you know, take charge of it and see that those things, you know, our vision
Right,
is
Happen.
being,
executed.
being done.
Couple of things that we might consider or that the city might consider to promote the airport is promoting local events like the, I don't know, the drag races or the car shows or other local events in some of the general aviation magazines. Not the high-end expensive ones, the flying or those kind of things, but the ones that you pick up all the time in the FBO. They're newsprint type things, and if they advertised a big drag race coming in at Winnemucca, and you know, we have courtesy cars and so there's transportation available. These events are going on. Other events that are happening around town over the summer, or any time for that matter.
But would that fall under city or under the FBO?
Well, I'm thinking if the city wants to attract attention to their events,
Is it their events, or do they make a flyer, whoever's going out there, that they can share it with us? And we can share it?
I don't know, I don't, I mean,
I know we
again, the
have
only
air
two
shows
events that
before.
come to mind are the car show, and the drag races, maybe the roundy round races. They have those every weekend in the summer. Another thing might be that the city could facilitate the establishment of a restaurant on the airport. There's a couple of things with that. That's very attractive on airports. A lot of places, a lot of pilots will fly to go have $100 hamburger. They'll leave Yarrington and come to Winnemucca just to have a hamburger. They'll leave Minden or wherever.
Research shows it triples your fuel cells.
In addition, that may attract locals because there's not much in Grass Valley in the way of eating and drinking establishments. You have to go clear to town. So if, and it's city property, if the city can, again, thinking in the way the industrial park was kind of promoted, is do the same thing, something similar at the airport. There's plenty of places to put a restaurant, but it has to be, I mean, obviously, somebody's gonna have to make money doing that. They're not gonna go and do
Say
it
they're not in
as a
the
donation to the
job
airport.
of creating a business, but they certainly could lease land to do so, but you gotta find that person that wants to
Right,
do so.
right, but that's
Yeah.
again, that's just,
But that's a great idea
That was
too, but
Buster High's
they might
vision.
go.
right, yeah, Buster at one time proposed
That was his
doing that, but
vision,
it didn't.
but having an airport diner.
You know, in thinking about those events that you were talking about,
Mhm.
have you ever considered talking to, or somebody, not just you guys, but somebody talking to some of the hotels in town and put together a fly-in package?
Yeah, that-
So if they wanna come to the county fair, or they wanna come to the races or
Sure.
whatever, but there's a fly-in package. So the Holiday Inn offers fly in, we'll pick you up, here's a discounted rate, use the airport, whatever, but you put it together as a package, so they get a room and transportation.
Yeah, get local business to participate.
Yeah.
So you gotta get the FBO on those, I mean, those are great ideas, I mean, there might even be coupon type stuff that they would do, you know, just like the buses that bring them into, you know, Gamble. I mean, you get,
Gold Casino Express.
yeah, get them on the, same
that.
page,
Should help a little bit.
you know?
Yeah.
And the money that is made off of the aeronautical land, what is that improvement for?
So right now, it's just in the
It's
airport
going to
fund.
build,
At the last meeting, when we were talking about the ASIP and, it seems like the FAA has not, they haven't dedicated funding for the complete pavement maintenance project for next year. But we have enough funds in the airport fund that we could supplement our bill funding and our entitlement funding so that we could do, you know, finish that project, do it all, instead of leaving some for a following year.
okay. And maybe at some point when we have that fund build up, maybe a little facelift for that building that sits out there? I mean,
Yeah,
just
the-
in
all
big drains, maybe something of that. Just, you know, obviously the runways are the most important, but, I mean, as that fund builds, maybe somewhere in our future.
Well, there's a lot of possibilities to consider, and obviously, we're not gonna come up with a vision right
Yeah.
this instant, but something.
Great ideas, though.
Maybe we ought to keep
Great
that
ideas.
on the project
Stir it
updates
up a
on
little
it.
bit.
That's what you had in mind, was
Yeah, it's just a,
the track, air
just try to get, cause if everybody's on board and we come up with a plan or a vision and we get everybody on board, it just
Yeah.
helps to get everybody going the same direction.
I mean, even if you attract locals to the airport, that's gonna spin off airport business.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't necessarily have to be airplanes coming in, but, I mean, that's obviously the primary,
Right,
goal, but locals should be catered also.
absolutely.
So this agenda item was for communication between airport board and city council. But do we want to try to schedule like a retreat between airport board and city council, or a few members, some other kind of committee to talk about this more in depth? Or do we want to have kind of a recurring agenda item on the airport board agenda to talk about it here for a while and then do that?
Well, I'd like to see the FBO
Yeah,
come too,
something-
so I mean, we'd all have to maybe, like you say, do a retreat, come to the table, or have it on continual meetings, and if they're there, we can have discussion either way, however that goes.
Well, and the airport board, so I think the airport board, we can make an agenda item that says, you know, like
A
airport
continuation.
vision or whatever it says. And then the airport board can kinda come up with some stuff first, and then we can.
With the FBO.
Sure,
think.
or,
Sure, yeah.
but then when at least this board has an idea of what it wants, then we can call the others to the table and,
Or present it to the city council.
yeah, something
Yeah.
like that.
What's a retreat look like? Is that just where you get members together and?
Yeah,
Brainstorm.
yeah,
You could have speakers and stuff too.
yeah. Usually they,
Do you have to put like public notice out for that? Because
yeah,
you have-
we will, yeah,
Right, okay.
yeah.
But it'd just be a good brainstorm, you know, you could have an hour or two of coffee and just sit around the table and brainstorm, cause obviously a lot of what we talk about needs to take place out there with our employees, and so they should be at the table to say how that would work for them, or great ideas, or bad ideas, or,
Right,
We could, why don't we just retreat out to your hangar, Hal?
sounds good. That room there.
There's a room.
And it would not need to be posted if it's, say, 2 members of the airport board, the FBO, staff.
Not a quorum.
Yeah, as long as there's not a quorum of any of the boards, like, there can be little brainstorming sessions that don't have to be
Sure.
a public meeting if there's no quorum of any of the boards.
But we could also make it an agenda item, but
Yeah, sure.
an ongoing agenda item?
Yeah.
Yeah, like
And
a,
if we don't have anything to talk about it, then we don't have anything to talk about.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Yeah.
It's like the
That'd be fine.
CAP or BAA
I think, yeah, I'd like to see
I think
more,
it's a
I'd
good
like to
start.
see more, all three groups brainstorm.
And I'd like
Yeah,
to
that-
see how it would work, you know, getting a restaurant out too. I mean, someone's gonna have to wanna open a business there.
Yeah,
I
how
know
do
the
you
city's
attract
not gonna
somebody to do that,
Put a
right?
restaurant out there.
Right.
Somebody, we're gonna have to get the word out that,
Right.
you know, there's a possibility, there is a business opportunity out there. Is anyone interested?
And I think that marketing plan, maybe that's where you start by getting all teams on board, and then you start by seeing how we can grow it and advertise it and reach out and.
There might be an opportunity to do kind of like a pilot thing, pilot meaning initial, not a flying pilot, with the food trucks. You know, our
That's
food
a good
trucks
start.
do well,
Our
Right.
food
like if there's a
truck
food
night.
truck
It's
Friday
not
at
for-
the airport, that's,
Amen, that's a great
you know,
idea.
that being said, for example,
Flying on a Saturday morning or something like that.
yeah, Saturday's a
This
better day,
past
that's
Saturday,
fine.
the Coyote Cruisers had a bunch of cars over at the, convention center.
Mhm.
And they all went in there and just to get together with all the guys with cars and stuff, then they had all the food trucks outside. I mean,
Yeah, there's lots we can do.
there's a lot,
And that's without making the commitment of like opening a restaurant, you
Yeah.
know,
That's a
if
great
somebody
idea.
wants to test it out to see if there's
We have in the
business
past, and they've been
opportunity
pretty
there.
successful, but it's, takes a lot of work and, you know, somebody, it's
Yeah,
a lot
And
of
you know,
organization.
we've
There
got-
is a meeting, there is an event next month.
that's right,
at
the
airport.
SCCA's coming out, and
It
the
would
food
be
trucks will be out there.
good to promote locally around the airports, to come and see the sports car races.
It's autocross, yeah.
I think one big help would be just get an email list going of all the local, close by airports, so where we could, hey, email them a flyer and,
Sure.
hey, put this up in your airport.
We're
Yeah.
supposed to be getting a flyer from the sports car club.
They'll put up.
That we can put up, I don't know if Natasha has it yet or not, but that
I haven't received one.
Nick was
I
gonna
haven't seen one yet.
send out a
but-
flyer. Well, we can remind him.
Maybe that's a start, I mean, that's our.
Yeah, and that'd be easy.
We had a pretty good showing last year.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
if
no,
Natasha's
no.
getting things like that, then the only way that we can get them is for her to be sharing them, so that we can also share.
Right.
Yeah, it has to be a little bit of a joint effort there, so I'm sure she'd be totally on board.
Well, I would say moving forward, I'll work on putting together like a vision statement or something like that, and then we can all get together. If I have something ready for the next meeting, we'll just put it on the agenda, and then I like the idea of a retreat eventually. Maybe let us
And I
get our
can
ducks in a
certainly
row a
ask the
little bit more.
chamber what they know about a marketing plan, something that maybe they've helped other with, I can ask.
Okay. Move forward.
Yeah.
Okay, the next agenda item, the revised FAA Airport Capital Improvement Plan, discussion of possible action. I think that, we got this put together pretty good, everybody's looked at it, I'm sure. It's pretty loaded up, and I think we were all at the consensus, we're gonna go for it, get as much as we can out of it, from what they approved, and then we'll subsidize it with local funding. Refresh my memory if that's not correct, but, cause we were too late to change it at the last meeting, we had to go forward. We'll try and go for, get the most we can out of whatever they pay us, or whatever they grant us, and then we'll try and subsidize it, for 2026. If that's not what we had in mind, let me know, but I think we're down to the wire now, we gotta get it submitted.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's due by May
Any
fifth, which is.
thing you wanna
before
add to
the next
that?
airport
Alicia?
meeting. No, the changes that were made to this is so the heavy ramp project for this year, prioritizing taxiway A2 in the east side of the heavy ramp. And the costs were all updated based on the most current, cost estimate. That project is out to bid right now. The bids close on the 17th, I believe. So we'll know then exactly how much that project's gonna cost. And we'll know how much of it we can fund. And then we're waiting on the bill funding for the signage and pappy replacement project for this year. And then next year, the pavement rehab, all of those different pieces were put in priority order. That was a request by the FAA. And then just, we have a lot of the different phases of the heavy ramp construction on there, and, we don't know if the FAA will fund those phases, but we'll keep requesting them each year.
I have a question. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the airport beacon, I thought we talked about pushing that back longer and trying to keep fixing what we have, cause I mean, that's a pretty historical
Yeah, so
beacon.
So the bill funding, I think 2026 is the last year that the bill funding is available, but we can use bill funding for pavement maintenance also. And one option with the beacon and the tower were to put in a new one and then keep the old as a historical marker. That was one option that was discussed, but if we can certainly keep pushing it back. It just won't be bill funding after 2026. It'll be
So we could leave it as
entitlement
is
funding
and push
or
it back
AIP funding.
farther as we do it next year. Yeah,
Well, the bill funding though would have to go over to the
Pavement maintenance,
pavement maintenance.
yeah,
which isn't a bad thing either, really.
Right.
yeah,
Right.
you're right, though, I remember you telling that.
I think one of the issues was that the FAA won't fund maintenance of the old beacon and old tower, but we could use airport fund money to do that kind of maintenance. But FAA will fund a brand new tower and a brand new beacon.
Yeah,
What kind of work would the old one, what do you envision as far as does it need to, just to spruce it up, or does it?
we talked
I mean,
about painting it.
Wasn't parts an issue or something? They had problems getting parts at one point, but
Yeah.
it seems like they keep able to keep them going.
I don't know if you could keep the tower and put a whole new solid state light on top that is
Right.
much less energy and
You know,
maintenance intensive.
I read something about changing it to pilot control too, to where the pilot clicks his mic so many times and the beacon will turn on, just like.
I don't think that one will do that.
No, this one won't for
This one
sure,
won't.
but I've read an article where they did change that over
So
to
they allow
that
that?
style,
So it would need a new beacon.
but the FAA is probably not gonna fund retrofitting, I wouldn't imagine.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they would fund just a new beacon and allow us to put it on the
Yeah,
old
we'll
tower.
build a tower and they supply the beacon and, nope, we have a tower.
Right.
Look at that.
We know, it's already there. Yeah,
Any
and I
other-
just wanna reiterate, trying to, that's a prehistorical thing that's
I
out
wanna
there.
keep it
That's
there whether it
pretty-
works or
yeah,
not.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of the only ones with the building still on it too, I think.
Yeah, the little
That
power
building
building
doesn't do anything.
beside it, yeah.
This is off the subject a minute, but that little building there, Rocky Phoenix had an idea when he was on the board. We got that and put coffee pots in there, and then when planes flew in on a Saturday morning, they'd come in there and have coffee and donuts. And then some could camp out there next to the hangars, and that's still an idea. Because
Yeah, cool
that
spot to
building's
camp back in.
not doing nothing.
Yeah.
And he talked about painting it up like World War II art, like on nose art, having it all done, but those are some ideas we can put in this think tank thing. You got it, I want to. Well, any other comments on this ASIP?
The crack filling that the city has done recently on the GA ramp looks really good.
Yeah,
They've used that mastic. And I'm wondering if is that a standard we could use in the future for crack filling? It's more expensive, I'm sure,
It is, yeah.
but it's probably worth it, from what I can see
Mm-hmm.
of what happened on taxiway A1. That was filled last year, and that's the best part of the whole taxiway
Mm-hmm.
now, so.
That material is the standard for the city for cracks that are, you know, larger than, I'll say,
Sure.
a half inch.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's what, they bought that material for any of those larger cracks. If it's more just like a hairline crack,
Right.
they just use the regular
Yeah.
crack sealing material. But yeah, for any larger crack, I believe that mastic is all our street department
Yeah.
will use on the larger ones.
Okay, cause that works really well, and looks very durable.
Yeah, it looks
they
really
did a
good.
lot of work out there
I mean,
last week too.
And there's no issue with using them on the taxiways that the FAA would squawk at or anything.
Not that I'm
Can't
aware
imagine.
of.
they might squawk if they were paying for it.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And the rubberized coating was much cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
They would probably
Mm-hmm.
say, oh, well.
Okay, on the ASIP, I think we should move forward with it.
I'll make the motion to approve the ASIP as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion? Motion approved. Okay. We'll go into staff board member reports, project updates. Have aids, nobody here from the airport. Fixed base operator, nobody's here. Civil Air Patrol, Colonel Lynn,
Yes.
would you like to brief us?
Well, that's basically why I'm here, is just to give you an update
I
on
know
what's
you're
happening
here.
with Civil Air Patrol. You probably, I think you've already heard that we've updated the building a little bit. We got carpeting donated from a church. City helped put it in. Looks really, really nice. The building's been painted on the inside, so everything looks real spruced up. We are really hitting the training hard. We have one mission pilot. We have another pilot in training. We have 2 observers, which is the right seat in the plane. And we have 3 scanners in training. They're the guys that sit in the back seat and take the pictures. And we have 2 mission radio operators that are in training, almost totally qualified. So this past weekend, 5 of our members went to Reno. We had a statewide exercise, and they went to Reno. I encouraged them to go to Reno because it was a bigger base. There were more people. They saw a bigger exercise. So they drove over and flew over, used both the van and the plane, go over there, participated in the SARX, came back, got a lot of really good training. So that's the training end of it. The aerospace education end of it is CAP is putting on and coordinating with NASA on an aviation weather project. And this will go on through the summer. So our cadets are going to be providing data collection for this project on May 10th. And basically what it is the simple explanation is they're studying contrails, is what they're studying. And they're collecting data on the weather patterns and the weather humidity and all that kind of stuff at certain points during the summer. The first one was this past weekend, but because everybody was somewhere else, we couldn't do it. The next one is May 10th. So, the cadets are being trained on how to use cameras, and there's an app on their phone where they collect the data, and it's a nationwide project. So they're connected with Cap National and with NASA. So those are the big things that are going on right now. I'm just here to give you that update. Does anybody have any questions?
You said new commander, there's a new commander? New, it said new pilot, new commander, or just
No,
new pilot?
there's a new mission pilot
Okay,
and a new pilot in training.
oh, I gotcha.
When do you expect to be ready to fulfill your mission?
We could do it now.
So you have all the people qualified to go?
We have
do a
enough
search?
people qualified, we could do it now.
Okay.
Okay? But again, remember, that has to be a request. So the sheriff's department has to request from DEM, Department of Emergency Management, and DEM then calls the Air Force. And the Air Force calls us.
Sure.
So it has to go through that process. We can't
That's
just
any,
take a phone.
any of those?
That's the whole cap regulation.
Nationwide, yeah. You wanna comment on the squadron unit inspection?
Oh, yes, we had, every 3 years, 2 years, we have a subordinate unit inspection. And that means they have inspectors come out and they look at our finances, they look at our buildings, they look at how we handle logistics, our everything. And, we did exceptional. So, everybody pulled together, and, Joe is doing a really good job as a commander and making sure everybody knows how to do their job and whatever. So that was on March 29th. That was on March.
Yeah, nice job.
He is the pilot in training.
He's the pilot in training.
Natasha is the transport pilot.
No, mission pilot.
She's a mission pilot.
She's a mission pilot and an orientation pilot. So that's a qualification where she can take cadets. They have to be members, but she can fly cadets, and there's an actual syllabus that they follow with all the flights that they take. So she is, she's qualified to do that. She is going to, our encampment is in June, the end of June. It's a week-long, like a boot camp type thing. It's in Wendover. So she'll be going over, and a couple of the other adult members will be going over. All 6 of our cadets are going to spend the week over there. And that encampment opens the door for our cadets to go to a lot of other activities. They're called National Cadet Activities, cyberspace, mechanics, administration, all kinds of things, but they have to go to encampment first. So they're gonna get that encampment out of the way this year. So as they progress in the program, they can now qualify to go to some of these other national exercises or academies. Any questions?
No, nice job.
Good
Very
stuff.
cool. Yeah, very cool.
Thanks, Colonel,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
You're welcome, Major.
Mr. Chairman, I have one other question on the project updates. During the last meeting, there was a question about the BLM expansion, and they were expecting to be at 90% design in January, and they're still talking about 65%. We were gonna talk with Wagner about that.
Yeah, so Nadine sent an email a week or 2 ago that said they've made a lot of progress on the 65%, and let me see, she's on, so she might know. But I think she said she thought it would be submitted this week or next week.
The 65%?
Yes. She said by the end of the month, end of April.
Any update on that, Nadine?
Yeah, just that, is the update. We're, just working on some final details and, including putting the spec book together. And there's a couple of other items as part of the 65%, submittal that they wanna see, and, there was a couple comments, I just wanna say that, so we're working on this one for Winnemucca, obviously, and there's also one for Wells Airport. They made a couple comments recently about, the design for Wells that we're trying to nip in the bud for the Winnemucca design and try to get a little bit ahead of it, so we're incorporating, comments from the BLM, into this design and into these documents, just to make sure we're getting maybe a little bit ahead in anticipation of their next round of comments. So, yeah, we're working on the deliverables, and, I'm saying I'm hoping to be done and ready to submit by the end of the month, but it is realistic, so that's our plan, that's our goal.
So given the pace of design here, when do we expect construction might begin on this project?
That's pretty hard to estimate, just because feedback from the BLM is also, hard to anticipate how long it takes for them to review as well. It's obviously off from our initial estimate. And then it also depends on, the best time for construction to build around fire season. So if I had to take a stab at it, I'd say next spring for construction.
That's your question? It ain't gonna happen this year.
No, I knew that.
Anything else? If nothing else, we'll go back to public comment. Do we have any public comments? Any online? Anybody have anything? The good of the, if not, we'll adjourn the airport board.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Lockwood. Board members, thanks. Have a good Easter.
Thank you.
Yeah, happy Easter.
When is the next city?
It's, next Tuesday.
Next week?
Next
Yeah,
Tuesday.
next week.